Hey, what's up you guys? This is Sentai22 here. How you guys all doing? Bringing you another console review for you. And today I'll be checking out the Retrobit Super Retro Trio. Now, this is in a long line of clone consoles out there. Mind you, this isn't a substitute for the original. Of course, the reasons for me buying this was because uh, I have all of these retro consoles, but the thing is, I want to preserve the integrity of these systems. So I decided to buy a clone console just for that purpose. The fact that I can uh, play all of these different systems into one little device without the need of trying to plug in the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, and the NES together is really an awesome thing. Mind you, it isn't a substitute for the original. The original will always do for these systems, but this is for people that just want a quick play of any of the cartridges that you pretty much find in flea markets and eBay, of course, which of course retro gaming has become a trend in the last couple of years. People are deciding to buy their old systems and they're getting pretty expensive. So also, this is the first time that Retrobit, prior to the Retro Trio, the previous systems that they made, for example, the Retro Duo and the other system, I forgot the name of it, they only incorporated Sega Genesis. No, they only incorporated Super Nintendo and the NES, with unfortunately the Super Nintendo controller. This is the first time, of course, that they decided to incorporate the Sega Genesis ports, as well as putting different ports in the system, as well as putting different ports instead of your usual two ports that the Retrobit consoles have been known for, just one port. And also, this is great for people, especially that live across the globe, that really want to play region games from, for example, Japan. This also plays Super Famicom games, PAL games, anything. However, for those of you people that live in Europe, you might have to get a step-down converter for this because it doesn't come one. It just comes with your regular NTSC plug. So alright, let's take a look at the box real quick. As you can see, it pretty much says what it's supposed to do. It's all in one, so you can pretty much play all of the systems from Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and the NES. This is the reason, again, why I bought this, because I didn't want to put all of these systems plugged in my entertainment system. I just want one. And of course, it tells you all of the stuff here in different languages. Let me just read one for you guys. Get the nostalgic gaming fix with the Super Retro Trio by Retrobit. Play the classic NES, Super NES, and Genesis games directly from the original cartridges into the Super Retro Trio. The modern design of the 3-in-1 system allows for less clutter and more gaming. That's what I meant. It equips with 3 cartridge slots, 6 controller ports, and compatible original third-party controllers, 2 controller AV cables, S-Video connector, and AC adapter. The Super Retro Trio gives you old school gamers a new reason to get their games on. So, as well, it gives you like all of the essentials, the 3 slots, the compatible original NES, Super NES cartridges, as well as a region switch for those who want to play Super Famicom, PAL, Super Nintendo, as well as Sega Mega Drive games and Genesis games. So, and I forgot to mention, you have to buy this separately. The Super Retro Advance, which lets you play Game Boy Advance as well as original Game Boy games. Word of advice, Retrobit, start making a Famicom adapter, please. Seriously. So, anyway, I'm just opening this baby up. So, once again, as I usually do, here we go. Alright, now let's take a look at the Super Retro Trio. As you can see, very nice, very sleek design, very cool. It almost reminds me of the Super Famicom a little bit, just because the Super Famicom does have that kind of very sleek design and not kind of like the blocky type design as we're used to with the Super Nintendo. But that's okay, I kind of like both of the designs, doesn't really matter to me. So as you can see, you have all of the switches for each of the systems. You got your Genesis, Super Nintendo, and NES. A blue light will pop up. If you go to the Super Nintendo, a red light will pop up. And for the NES, you get a green. I like this. It's pretty cool that they incorporated that. And of course, you got your usual reset button. You got all of the different slots for the systems. You got your Sega Genesis, you got your Super Nintendo, and you have your NES. As well, as I mentioned, it also plays your Mega Drive and Famicom games, Famicom, Super Famicom, and Famicom, although you may have to have an adapter for the Famicom. So here is the controllers that comes with the Retro Trio. It's your Super Nintendo controllers, which is kind of odd really, because with the Super Nintendo controller you also get a plug from the Sega Genesis. Seriously, Retrobit, you couldn't get a Super Nintendo Super Nintendo plug with the Super Nintendo controller, yet you give us this? Also, what's the deal with this? You could have just gotten a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis controller in one package. It would have been awesome, but I'm guessing the reason for that is probably because AdGames probably owns those rights, because they're the AdGames is a company that makes the Sega Genesis clone. So I guess they couldn't have done it. I mean, but come on. Seriously, they could have definitely tried to do a Sega Genesis controller. But anyway, what are you gonna do? Now let's take a look at the controller ports. Now, if you want to get to the controller ports, just press this tab right here. And voila, you have all of the controllers from the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, the original Nintendo, and the Sega Genesis, as well as some really awesome features. You can change the region of the system to whichever region you live at. But like I said before, for those of you who live in Europe, for example, you may have to get a stripped down converter. You can change the region from NTSC, PAL, and Japanese NTSC. So really awesome little gimmick. It does help for those of you who want to get into import retro games. So as well, here you got to change the controller settings from the Super Nintendo to NES to Genesis. So alright, now it's time to test some games with it. So I'm going to show you guys the games that I'll be testing them on. Okay, now here are the games that I'll be testing with the Retro Trio. As you can see, you got your pretty much your common Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo and NES games. You got your Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles. You got Super Mario World, you got Mega Man 2, as well as a few imports. As you can see, we got Kamen Rider for the Super Famicom and Chojin Sentai's Jetman for the Famicom, with a Famicom attached with a Famicom converter to NES. As well, because I want to do it, Power Ranger games for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. As well, some Mega Drive games, as you can see. It's Sailor Moon for the Sega Mega Drive, as well as Gar. Even though it was released here, one thing interesting about this game, which I will show you guys in about a few minutes. So, alright guys, let's get on to the testing. So, here we go. Alright, now let's test the powers of Kamen Rider and Super Sentai with the Super Retro Trio. As you can see, I have the Super Famicom as well as the Famicom with the converter. So first let's test out the power of the Super Sentai with Chojin Sentai's Jetman for the Famicom. So let's go to the NES. And it works. You restart it again. Alright, now let's try the powers of the Kamen Rider with the Kamen Rider for the Super Famicom. Now let's test the power of the dinosaurs with two Power Ranger video games for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Power Rangers the movie for the Genesis and regular Power Rangers for the Super Nintendo. So let's get started. First off, we're going to turn on the Genesis. Voila! Awesome. Now let's go from Power Rangers the movie to the regular Power Ranger TV series with the Super Nintendo. It takes a little while, but there you go. Alright, let's check out the common gaming test. Here we have Sonic 3 and Knuckles, as well here we have, I don't know if you can see it, you have Super Mario World right there, as well as Mega Man 2 for the NES. So let's get started. Now let's check out the NES first with Mega Man 2, and it works fine. Alright, now let's test out the Super NES with Super Mario World. And it works fine, as you can see. And last but not least, the Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And also, last but not least, we're going to check out a Mega Drive game. Here we have Sailor Moon for the Mega Drive. Now you gotta keep in mind that these are region lock cartridges, so once you've turned on the system, this will pop up. Authorized in Japan. However, you can use the region lock on the bottom of the system to take care of this problem. Just go to, if you get a closer shot here, to where it says NJ. Now reset the system, and there you go. Alright, here is an interesting treat for you guys. Here I have a copy of Gyari's for the Genesis. This is the American version. And I have this set up to the Japan region. And watch what happens. I'm going to turn on the system. Just wait for a few moments. And voila, it actually turned my Sega Genesis into a Mega Drive game. Really, really cool. As you can see, it's in Japanese text. Okay, now here are my thoughts on this. I have to say, best clone console on the market right now. I mean, sure, you got the Retron 5, but it's a pretty expensive machine. I mean, the fact that it can play Famicom games without a converter, as well as play your Game Boy Advance without a converter, of course. It's a really neat little device, but the thing is, it's very expensive just because it uses the more current technology of from what I can understand, the Retron 5 has an Android based system. This doesn't really use all of this. It's kind of like your simple, just plug it in and just play, pretty much. No need to go to like an interface or anything like that. And that's how it should be, to be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the feature of you can save in a state without trying to punch in a code, but this is kind of more of a classic feel if you want to get into that. Also, it's really great, like I said before, if you don't want to plug in all of your old systems, you want to preserve your old systems, you know, you just want to play all of your Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and NES on just one system. It's pretty good. And of course, the picture quality is great. I mean, sure, there is some inaccuracies, but let's face it, a lot of these clone consoles have inaccuracies. And also keep in mind that you will face a lot of compatibility issues. I mean, I tested pretty much half of my gaming library in this, and I have to say, all in all of the games worked. Also, one thing about this that I wish they could have done is make an eject button or something, because these things are pretty difficult to pull off. The cartridges get stuck in there and you're just trying to basically use your strength to take them out, and once you look inside these slots, they're all bended out. I mean, I don't know how long this thing will last, but I wish they could have added a feature where you just eject it without the hassle of taking the system with it, you know. In the end, it is a really great clone console. If you ever get a chance, get it. It's $60. I mean, it's a better alternative than the Retron 5, because right now it does have some issues which they're trying to do with updates. But if you're not really into the save states or anything like that, this is a great alternative. Plus, if you can just get the the Super Retro Advanced adapter, which you have to buy it separately from Retrobit. So anyway, guys, that's about it. Hope you guys enjoyed this gaming review. Please, guys, comment as well as subscribe. This is Sentai22, and thanks for watching.